that the child has, anything more than what is expected. So when we are talking about learning disability, let me again reiterate, somebody else mentioned that they fall within the normal, average to above average IQ levels. They surely do not fall on the other end of the spectrum where the IQs are below average. So let me explain here. All children who would be gifted would be falling, when you compare them, would be falling in a definitely a higher range of the IQ standards. And as we move ahead, we'll be looking at that. And it also requires special education or consideration. Obviously, like I explained earlier, these children, because they are something more or something different, and they have emotional issues because of lack of understanding seen by the people around, because the school or the classroom expects them to do something in a different manner. Because of that, they require some special consideration. They require some special modifications in the curriculum. Now, here again, I would like to reiterate, IQ scores do not entirely reflect the population of gifted children. Do you think somebody who is, maybe somebody like Hitler, do you think he would have actually gone in for an IQ test? But do you think he was gifted or no? Who can answer that? Do you think?
Yeah, he was gifted. He was gifted. Though he did not use it for the correct purposes, but he was.
Absolutely.
The ability to sway people.
Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the reasons why we need to identify them early. If they are not identified, they continue to remain social misfits. Emotionally, they are not stable. And if we don't give the intervention at the right time, they end up going entirely the wrong way. And Hitler was definitely gifted because of his ability to convince so many people about his ideology, what he believed in. So there are many negative people also in history whom we have seen who have fallen out of the system because they were not recognized, because they were not identified by the system. And it is not necessary that these children will surely outshine in class. There might be instances where they might outshine, they might not outshine, depending on how the curriculum is planned. Right. And the incidence of gifted children, it was when the testing started. Now I think the testing and the psychologist, it's only, you only go to the psychologist when there is an issue or problem with the child. But ideally speaking, when you look at a gifted child, you mostly look at the problems that are being created in the class. You mostly look at the issues. He's not able to write, he's not able to concentrate, he asks a lot of questions, he challenges the teacher. The giftedness might go unnoticed, but the disability or the difficulty or the problem is looked at. That is why the identification is very difficult. But research has proven that out of every 100 children, there will be 3 to 5 children who belong to the gifted category. So that we need to understand over here, that there have been many in history. In fact, in history, these people were able to achieve, because school education and a college degree wasn't given as much importance then. Now, when we consider the last 50 years, post-independence, especially in our country, having a graduation, post-graduation, double graduation, all these things are given importance. So people who even had the gift did not feel that they should pursue what they want, because for the simple reason that they would be not able to sustain. The whole idea of education became that they need to sustain their families, they need to earn money, and they need to be job ready, maybe not even job ready, but to get a job. Hopefully that should change now, where with the NEP coming in, with the flexibility that is promised, implementation is still yet to come, guidelines yet to come. But if this comes into play, surely our education system would reach up to the international standards, where we would be able to give that kind of autonomy to our children to be able to pursue what they are good at, to give the autonomy, to give the freedom that these children can do exactly what they want without having to get anxious or worried about academic subjects which they are not very good at. So William Shakespeare here said that some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Another, I would say, can you imagine an uneducated person like Shakespeare has written so many poems and has written so many plays, and when we learn English literature, we treat him like the god of English literature. There's another person who was considered crazy in his time. If you can tell me, people who are psychologists, he was known as the father of psychology. Any guesses, anyone? Father of psychology.
Sigmund Freud.
Absolutely, very good. You are absolutely correct. I was hoping that I would get that answer because Sigmund Freud, when he was doing his research, he was totally ostracized. In fact, his research had to be done behind closed doors so that the world would not know. Obviously, we all know his research was very much based on the sexual drive of human beings, trying to explain behavior, human personality through, the sexual drives, the gender, all the complexes and things like that. So it was very difficult at that time for people to accept a topic like this, where it was not polite conversation in society, and that is the reason why he was also considered crazy in his time. It's only after these people are dead and gone that we realize what is your contribution in from the past. Thankfully, now things have changed. Things, there is a lot of scope because of the change in the way people think about the gifted child. Now, next is an activity which is going to take like maybe 10 minutes, where I'm going to show you certain images, very simple, it's nothing tough, but you're going to quickly say fastest finger. So whoever is going to identify the person, you are going to speak up who the person is. I'm sure there'll be some noise, but please bear, because otherwise the fun would not be there. And let me tell you, before I show you these images, these are all school dropouts, people who have not achieved a degree or a great college education, right? So we move on. Who is this?
Bill Gates.
Okay.
Bill Gates.
Very simple.
Bill Gates.
Like I said, this is very simple.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, what did he do?
Facebook.
Facebook CEO.
Okay.
Created.
This name is there because I assume that many of you might not be watching Hollywood.
Will Smith.
Will Smith. And who is
It's
this?
written on the picture.
Yes, I did not hide that because I didn't want you people to feel, oh, how come you don't know this guy? Who's this now? Senior kind of actor or something. Let me give you that hint. He's Denzel Washington.
Morgan Freeman. He's not Morgan Freeman, is he?
No, he's Denzel Washington.
Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey. That is again our generation. Oprah Winfrey. Okay, household names. Who's this? Anyone from the younger generation over here?
Yeah, this one is Ellen DeGeneres.
Yes, absolutely. Ellen DeGeneres, who is the latest household name. These are all school dropouts. Okay, when they don't have college degrees, you all know in the United States, a school would be up to grade 12, the way it is, it's considered college year. But these people have dropped out immediately after that or somewhere before that. Okay, so the year they will not say I'm 7th pass or 6th pass or something like that. The fact that they did not go for college degrees means they have not completed their schooling, or they have dropped out or after their school years, or they have dropped out somewhere in between. But these people are household names now. As in, there are many like this. There are many like this in the world. Many Hollywood actors. Now, not necessarily that they all can be gifted. Let me explain this. Not every successful person could be gifted, and not every gifted person could be successful. So please understand that. I hope that is not very complex for all of you. Now, let me come back to our beloved India. Okay, so this is going to get interesting now. Who's this now? No introduction needed.
He struggled with his economics.
Who's this? I didn't get the name.
Sachin Tendulkar.
Sachin, you need a name for it.
Yes, no, not completed college degree. And who's this handsome gentleman?
Akshay Kumar.
Favorite?
Akshay Kumar.
Yeah, again. And who's this?
Kapil
Kapil
Dev.
Dev.
Kapil Dev.
And who's this?
Smriti Irani.
Smriti
Smriti
Irani.
Irani.
What is peculiar about Smriti Irani? Anyone can tell me what was her role? The old role everyone knows, household name. She was
a model. She was a
Yeah.
model, then an actress, now a politician.
Yes, and as a politician, she was a model, and she became Miss India. She dropped out of from her education. She's, people assume she's done her 12th, which also is little dicey. But do you know that she was the HRD minister, and the HRD ministry looks at what?
Education.
Education.
Education. So somebody who's not having a college degree got to actually make decisions for all of us. And many of you must have heard her speak. You know how well versed she is And the way she speaks, I'm sure many of you would have heard. Have you?
She's a very good orator.
A very good orator. You don't need a college degree to make you what you are. These are all those children, I mean, these are all those people who in their school age might have really created problems for their teachers, who might have really been difficult to handle. Now, who's this person?
Amir Khan.
Okay.
Amir Khan.
Another dropout, but very talented. Now, who's this?
Mary Kom.
Mary Kom.
So did not finish her education. Now, who's this?
Subhash Chandra.
ZTV. Subhash Chandra. Yeah.
Subhash Chandra.
Okay, brilliant. He's known as a media mogul. In the year 1994, when ZTV swept India, he's a multi, I don't know, he's worth billions because ZTV even holds preschool chain, you all know that. So he himself did not complete his education. So when you look at this, what does this tell you? What does this all tell you? There are other forms of intelligences that somehow our education system is missing out. Do you all agree with that?
Absolutely, there is a theory
Absolutely, ma'am.
Yes, that is exactly what we are coming to, the theory of multiple intelligences. I'm sure this was at the top of many of your minds that yes, this is what we need to understand, that it is not necessary that everybody who's word smart or picture smart or who's good with interpersonal skills. Now, when we look at this chart, I'm going to spend just 3 minutes because this is just for you to understand how we can identify a person with special gifts. Now, somebody like, Smriti Irani would have been word smart, in school, but maybe she was not good in logic, where mathematical skills are concerned. So because of that, maybe she did not feel interested. Or maybe there are some people who are, picture smart, who are very good with visual skills, who are very good in drawing. Now, for example, music smart, who are the Indian or maybe any other person who is very good with music?
A.R. Rahman.
A.R. Rahman, again, not completed education. Mozart was somebody else, right? Who else?
Ilayaraja.
Yes, Ilayaraja. Then body smart. Now we just saw somebody, two people in the earlier slide who would have been very good in the kinesthetic area. Sachin Tendulkar, obviously, to the ability to gauge the speed of the ball, and Kapil Dev. This is all physical. See, you and I most of us might be good in word smart. Maybe we are good people smart because we are leaders. We are able to understand and maintain relationships with people and get along. But you would find that most of the people who belong to the gifted category have had difficulty in their personal lives. They have had issues where, because intrapersonal, when you look at intrapersonal, the ability to know where I'm lacking, where my communication is not up to the mark, that is where they, have problems. Maybe they might have difficulty in being able to maybe run, walk, or being able to do something. Like most of the athletes fall in the kinesthetic, the well-known athletes. Who are they? Can we quickly name a few athletes who are extremely good?
Bita Fogart, Sushil Kumar,
Sushil Kumar, yes.
Bolt, Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt, yes. If you look at these lives, many of them have had upheavals in their lives. And not everybody who has reached the pinnacle of success might be gifted. But surely they have certain areas where they are good at. Now, when you consider this theory, we need to understand that not one or two would be existing. There could be a combination of many. It's like a grid. So some could be music smart and logic smart, some could be word smart, and these combinations are endless. Because again, the factor of environment also plays a big role. What the child is born with and the environment, the exposure level of the child. So that is why, thankfully, now with the new education system, the concept of multiple intelligences, which we have learned in our BEd, say 25, 30 years back, will be given more priority, will be given more importance, is what we feel. So in order to understand the gifted child, we need to look at the various classifications of gifted children. So there are many children in your class who might be bright. So there is a difference between the bright child and the gifted child. Just like in special education or with children who are intellectually disabled, we have mild, moderate, severe, profoundly, let me use the word, mentally retarded. Oh, this word is outdated. The definition still holds true. That is the definition we're following. though we use intellectually challenged. In that there are mild, moderate, severe. Similarly, here we have so many categories of bright, moderately gifted, highly gifted, exceptionally gifted, and profoundly gifted. Now, the US is the only state, I'm using the word state here because that's what they call their country, where the president's IQ levels are checked. You know, there is a movie which recently came in. I don't know many of you whether you have seen that or no, called Gunjan Saxena, the Kargil girl. Have you seen it?
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay, you have to see it because there's this very nice scene in that where she is the first army, she wanted to fly and she's the first female army, not army, sorry, Air Force
Officer.
Air Force pilot.
Air
She's
Force
the
officer.
first. Yeah, she's the first lady to go for the naval pilot, air pilot,
In the Air Force, Indian Air Force.
Air Force, Indian Air Force. Very
Right.
wonderful movie.
Yeah. Okay. So did you see the part where the training was going on and she's asked to jump?
Yes,
Can you
yes.
narrate that to us? Can you?
Yes,
narrate
yes.
that to us?
Yeah. When it is known as SSB, basically, the Staff Service Board conducts an exam. Okay.
Mhm.
So when the question was put to her that you have to jump, and she was asked to stand up on a table which was just adjacent to a window. So each and every contestant was confused where to jump, because outside the window there was it was on a top floor of a building. So everybody was thinking where to jump and how can we jump. But she used her intelligence level and she jumped inward rather than jumping on the outward side. And it was the best part of the movie that the instructor has just asked you to jump. They didn't say that you have to jump either outside the window or inside. I hope I'm going on the same line, the way you are thinking.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Right. Thank
That's
you.
what we speak
Thank you.
about. Thank you so much for explaining that.
Yeah.
She was just
Thank you,
told to
Archana.
jump. Thank you. But nobody asked her to jump out of the window. And most of the other girls said, no, we are too scared. We cannot do this. So she might not be kinesthetically strong there. She might not be so strong that she can jump and she knows how to jump. But she used her brains to get out of the situation. So that is what a gifted person would be able to do. You should be able to use that divergent thinking or thinking totally creatively in order to find solutions to the problem. So this was just a small example where I felt that a bright person might have some other ideas, but a gifted person will be totally different. They will have something absolutely not acceptable response, and that is going to totally the instructor over there was totally flummoxed because he did not expect that kind of a response. So when we look at the definition, when we look at the categories, we see bright, moderately gifted, highly gifted, exceptionally gifted, and profoundly gifted. And like I was saying, the United States is the only state where the IQ levels of all these people, George Washington, there is one gentleman who's a high school dropout again, who was working in the garage with his father, and now he went on to become a big statesman. And please listen carefully, he went on to become a big statesman, and his picture was printed on the American dollar. Anyone? Who is that? Because of high IQ. Anyone? Venture a guess. He was a American president. He went on to become the American president. And that is not
Abraham Lincoln.
Churchill.
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham
Churchill is
Lincoln.
England.
it was Benjamin Franklin. It was Benjamin Franklin. And over a period of time, they found that, yes, that is one of the reasons why we feel that, yes, this is a country where they've actually given importance to those people who don't have college degrees. But you know what? Same thing is followed in our country. And because of which the politicians are occupying big positions. But if we subject them to an IQ test, an open-ended question here, no political views here, but how many of them would actually score even in the bright category? Forget the moderately gifted, highly gifted or anything, but even in the bright category. Because for the simple reason that I wish if this was there in our country, we would have very intelligent people, very creative people, big solution seekers, solution finders who would be actually running the country. And that would have been beautiful for us. So in America, we have seen that all the US presidents, whoever has come, they've always had high IQs. They have been falling in the highly gifted category for various reasons. So IQ is not the only score to check whether the person is gifted or not. There are various ways of checking how the person can be put into the gifted category. Now, this was from the 20th century, like I said, the Stanford test came, then it became Stanford Binet test, if you know, Kamath Binet, which was Indianized for Indian standards, because when you look at IQ test for other countries, they are asking, they ask questions which are not there in our vocabulary. So that is why it had to be Indianized. But there is another very latest classification which we all need to look at, and that I'm going to share with all of you. This came up in 1986, which is fairly recent considering the fact that there is no other classification coming after this. So when we look at this, not all gifted children are the same. There are 6 types which have been identified of now. When you look at, I'm sure all of you might have thought of some children in your class or maybe your own family who fall into this kind of category. So when you look at these 6 types, maybe some of them fall into that, right? So the type 1 is a successful type, and 90% gifted people fall into this successful type. But the problem here is they are successful, they do all the things which are expected by the school education, but over a period of time, because they are just trying to seek approval of the teachers, of the parents, they stop being creative. They stop being autonomous or independent thinkers. So they can be successful, but they will become the CEOs of companies and they will do a lot of things, but somewhere they will feel that this is not what I'm cut out for. Though because of their high ability to understand needs, they are successful, but they could have been something more creative. Like people, we don't have an Indian equivalent of say Walt Disney. Do we have anyone to challenge Walt Disney's discovery? We don't have an Indian equivalent of McDonald's. These are all creative people who have come up with things which actually work well. But because our norms, our society is so rigid in terms of school education and degrees, somehow these children, okay, these are the ones I would say liken it to the arranged marriage, because if they want to do something else, but because society or family expects them to get into an arranged marriage, they don't step out and they remain in the marriage and maybe stay unhappy all their lives, but they are still successful in what they are doing. That is the bottom line here. Second type would be the divergently gifted. Now, these are the real challenges for us teachers, because these are those children who sit at the back and they challenge the teacher. They try to irritate the teacher because they are getting bored with what the teacher is teaching. They already know what the teacher is talking about. They get angry and they get upset because nobody recognizes that they have something more. They are much ahead of what the teacher is teaching. So because they are challenging in the class, what do you think happens? Continuously they are getting into trouble. They are labeled as a troublemakers. Can you think of some backbenchers like that who can be very intelligent? They can be intelligent given maybe it is a speech or maybe it's a drama or maybe it's a song that you ask them to do or a dance, and they're very good in that. But when it comes to math, they don't want to do it. Or when it comes to language or maybe writing an essay, they don't want to do it. So these are those divergently gifted children. And because of this, they fall out of the system many times. Then third type is a very interesting type, the underground type. The underground gifted are the people who in the age adolescence, they try to downplay their performances. They try to downplay because they feel if I show that I know it, then people will call me names. I will not be accepted by the family or the friend circle, not the family, the friend circle. Now, if you have done the Maslow's theory of motivation, the triangle of Maslow, below is the food, clothing, and shelter. Am I with you, all of you? You must have done it. Maybe it's
Yes.
Before that, it is a need for belonging.
Safety.
Safety needs, then there is belongingness needs. So when they're adolescents, the need to belong to a particular peer group or a particular gang of people is so important for them, especially for girls, that even if they know, they will try to downplay. Or if there is a boy who wants to be part of the football team and because he wants to be accepted by his peers, though he wants to attend class and he's enjoying the learning, he still would bunk the class and go because he wants to be accepted. So these become the underground children who are really good, but they're trying to downplay their talents.
Ma'am, they also downplay because they find it annoying to explain themselves.
Absolutely.
They'd rather not explain. They
Right.
find it extremely annoying that they have to make people explain what they're thinking, that plane, that level of thinking that they have.
Right, absolutely. Because they are at a different level, and somebody who's at another level, they might get frustrated and they'll just give up. Right. You're very right. Then the fourth type are the
They
dropouts.
want to be accepted by their friends.
Right.
Not everyone has that desire, ma'am. Not everyone.
I think all of us have that desire, but we have all been accepted for various reasons, you know. But for somebody who's gifted like that, they might need all the more reason to work hard on acceptance, because there is a lot of jealousy factor at that age, you know. That okay, teacher likes him because he does all his
But
work.
I know lots of students who couldn't care less. They'd rather be understood, misunderstood as foolish, so that they don't get bugged by people.
Yes.
I have seen people
Right. So
who would rather be misunderstood, who would just
Right,
hide their light.
they just hide their capabilities. They don't want to participate. They don't want to take part in a speech competition or an elocution because they
Because they found it so kiddish. They find it so
They find
kiddish.
it
They're like,
childish.
even if you win the elocution, what is it?
What is the big deal?
You're just talking like a parrot.
Right. So here is a gifted category type, you know, that is because these children know they are much beyond the group. They don't have to prove themselves to anybody. They're not looking for affirmation from anyone. So they are the underground type. We need to identify those children and bring them out. Then we have the dropouts who are like constantly angry children because the system does not understand them. They feel everything is a very irrelevant curriculum. Why should I learn about Mohenjo-daro, or why should I learn about the French Revolution and things like that? Because they are interested in maybe anatomy, or they are interested in some chemical equations and things like that. So their minds are so different, and they feel that I don't want to learn this, so they become rebels and they just drop out of the system. So we need to identify such children also, so that they don't lose out because they feel that the education that is being given to them is irrelevant. Then the type 5 is a double label type, where double label, which means, like I spoke about Einstein, learning disability as well as the giftedness. Now, there was a blind singer, if you know, in our childhood days, we used to listen to him, who was extremely good. Who remembers? Blindness, I mean, what we special educators call visually impaired, is another label.
Yeah, he
Helen
sang
Keller.
for Ramayana.
Helen?
He sang for Ramayana, I think.
Oh, you're talking about India?
Talking about an
Ravindra
English
Jain.
singer. I'm talking about an English singer called Stevie Wonder, if you recall.
Yeah, Steve Wonder.
Yeah.
Steve.
So he was, double label. Now, like Einstein, learning disabled as well as, having some kind of gift in a different manner. So there are many children like that who get bogged down because that one label, which is a disability, gets attention, and the giftedness gets rejected because of that. I don't know how much of this is true, but I've heard that even Abhishek Bachchan is learning disabled. Now, he could be a talented person, but somehow the other label has maybe hurt him so much or brought down his self-esteem so much that the giftedness could not be seen, you know. So there are people like that who are like Tom Cruise is learning disabled, but he overcome all his disabilities and proved himself. So some have come out of the closet, it's like people know, okay, this child or this person is learning disabled, but despite that he's come up. But there might be so many more who fall through the system, who fall and percolate through the system, and they are never identified because of the double label that they have. Right. And lastly, sixth one is the autonomous learner, which is a very good type of learner who does not depend on school, who does not depend on anyone. He or she will find information on their own. These autonomous learners make the system work for themselves. They are not for the system. They don't care. Like you said, they are not bothered about the elocution and trying to prove themselves. They are doing it because they enjoy. Remember Amir Khan in one movie, he said, I'm there because I enjoy the learning, not because of the degree. Which movie was that? Do you all recall that?
Three Idiots. Three Idiots.
Three Idiots, yes. He took somebody else's name and he attended college, not because he wanted the degree, but because he enjoyed the learning. So that is an autonomous learner who's not concerned about the consequences, who's not concerned about proving anything, but still enjoys the learning process. These are the 6 types. The reason to understand this is only with this understanding can we look at how the characteristics of the gifted children are and how we as teachers can make modifications in the curriculum. So very quickly, we'll look at the learning characteristics. Now we have done this. This is like a recap of the whole thing. So I would not explain much in detail, and it's quite self-explanatory. They have advanced vocabulary. They use terms in a meaningful manner. In the sense, they don't use terms just because it sounds cool. Okay, I'm going to use this because it sounds good. I'm going to use this term because it is a correct and appropriate word to be used here. So these children have that. They like adult company because they feel they are able to discuss more topics well with adults, and the way they speak, the richness of their and the fluency with which they speak. They might speak fast. They might have a lot of fluency because they don't have to think for thoughts. It just comes on their own. So they might speak fast. They elaborate a point. They are keen and alert observers. They usually see and more. In a movie, a child might just see the song, dances, this, that. Most of the time, the child is only talking about himself, and I saw this and I saw that. Whereas a child who is gifted will look at deeper nuances. He will look at the double meanings. He will look at things like sarcasm. Regular children don't understand when you're being sarcastic, but a gifted person will know, okay, this person means something else, though what the words used were something else. So that is where their vocabulary is different. Then the motivational characteristics, obviously we know that if they are at a higher level, they will get tired of write this answer 5 times and write this answer 10 times. They will be concerned with good and bad. They have a highly developed superego. Superego, I am using Freud's term here. Superego is synonymous with a conscience. Conscience means the difference between what is right and wrong from a very early age. According to Freud's theory and all the other Erikson and all the theories, the concept of right and wrong develops around, say, 5 or 6 years of age. Whereas for a child with giftedness, at 3 and 4 years of age, they will be knowing what is correct, what is not correct. Even their language, they will use elaborate words, and once they know the meaning of a word, they know where it is supposed to be used. So, but the problem with the right and wrong in the overly developed conscience is that they tend to pass judgment on others also. And they will say, as a 5-year-old, if they say, I don't think that is the right thing to do, children will say, what is it, chota moo, and that, they will say that, why is the child talking and why is he acting over smart? So that is our perception. But because of their judgmental attitude, again, they will get into trouble. The creativity characteristics, when you look at it, they generate large number of ideas. Now we saw so many examples of people. There are more examples. If we had time, I could have taken more activities where, more examples. But then the multiple intelligences by itself tells us that all those people who have come out of that with various skills are the creative ones who come up with solutions. Now, suffice to tell over here is that a person with creativity, a person with giftedness would be very creative in solutions. A regular child will say, I cannot do this because of so-and-so problem. But a gifted child would come up with solutions for this. And he or she would be able to find answers very creatively. And they will find unique and clever responses for any problems. And they are sensitive to beauty. If you look at certain paintings, who drew Mona Lisa? Who's the painter who drew Mona Lisa?
Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah. So when you look at it, okay, Mona Lisa is beautiful because it's a picture of a lady. But most of the people who draw, can you name some other the person who drew Madhuri Dixit? What is his name?
M.F. Hussain.
Yes.
M.S. Hussain.
Yes. Have you seen his drawings? Have you seen his paintings? They sell for lakhs. But you and I might not be able to understand what it means, what is a deeper color and this and that. But for a person with giftedness, might be able to see that. Right. So continuing with the leadership characteristics, these children are loved by their classmates for the simple reason that they have solution to every problem. They can go to them. They are much more mature. They're like an adult in the class because they can find solutions for all the problems that the others face. So because of which they are well liked. They might be seen as a troublemaker because if a child is having problem, they will not fear. They will go and challenge the authorities about it, or they might go and directly take it up. They can become activists because of that. They adapt readily to new situations. In fact, they thrive on change in routine. They don't like regular routine and regular things. They want something more because their mind is constantly seeking some kind of stimulation. So because of this, they can definitely be good leaders. In fact, the 6 categories which I saw, the successful one, the autonomous learner, and the other categories, all of them have excellent leadership qualities. Sometimes just being a leader when you're not expected to lead and somebody else will see you as a potential threat, can itself land you into problems. So because of this, these children get into a lot of problems, which brings us to the problems that they face. They empathize a lot. They feel, for others. Their emotions go out for others. So because of this, too much of involvement in what is going around, they have strong ideas and opinions about something, because of which they face a lot of social and emotional issues. The most important is that they are considered to be weird by others. They have a lot of because they are top of the group, they are not with the others, they get isolated, and they are not, if somebody tells them to go in one direction, they go in the opposite direction. They don't want to conform to norms, they want to go against what is expected. Apart from that, they might go to depression because people are not understanding what they are going through. And underachievement, like I said, the underground capabilities, they do not show what they are good at. They will show a lot of things which they are not good at, only for the simple reason that they want to belong. Now, any questions till now? Or we move ahead with the unique needs of gifted children. Another 10-15 minutes more. Matthew, sir, can I continue?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. Okay, fine. So now the last part of the session now is about the unique needs of these children. What is it that we as educators should be modifying in our curriculum or in our syllabus? See, let me tell you, curriculum is a very broad thing. When we look as teachers and principals, we look at only the syllabus. So how is it that we can modify the syllabus, given the broad framework given by the board, whether it is CBSE? Now, most of you are CBSE board teachers and principals here. When you look at this person over here, I'm using him as an example. Einstein, who could not read, the teachers had so much problems with him, and he was labeled as somebody who is having difficulty. Dyslexia is a word we used at the beginning. Reading problem. Now, reading is a direct indication of IQ development. A child who reads early obviously develops fast. But imagine if a child is in an environment where nobody reads. Does it mean the child, because he does not read at 5 years and 6 years, he has got a learning disability? No. Simple thing is, learning disability is also relative to the environment, to the stimulus, to the remediation which the child has got. If nobody in the house reads, if the child has never gone to school, how do you expect the child to learn to read and write? A and B and numbers and all these things are symbols which are created by human beings, right? So unless and until you train the child, he or she will not be able to learn. So labeling should be avoided. The reason why this slide is important here is because labeling terms like, see, you and I, we are professionals. Now, we love to label things because then it helps us to understand. Now, gifted is another label, if you consider. But we need to understand the child from a gestalt point of view. A gestalt would mean the total. Okay. Mahajan, some sound is coming from your microphone. Please mute yourself. This is Mrudula Mahajan. So please mute yourself. So when we look at a child from a gestalt point of view, from an overall point of view, that is when we understand what are the learning needs of the child. Now, for understanding this, there is this one very latest theory, only just single slide. Just look at the child and see how many things are being forced into his mind. There are so many things. On top of that, he has got that one skill which he is trying to develop. All of us have some skill or the other which we are trying to develop. But we are told to suppress all that because we have to learn all these things, formulas and things. So Lev Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist who spoke about the zone of proximal development. So teachers have to look for augmenting that, for bringing that child to the zone of proximal development, wherein the child can learn things with a little bit of help. Now, here is in the middle, there are 3 levels here, what the child can do independently. Now, if you are, say, for example, you are looking at can any one of you give an example of any child whom you have thought of? Any one of you have thought of a gifted child, or any child for that matter? Anyone quickly, or I'll move ahead. Okay, so suppose you're thinking of, say, a fifth grade child. A fifth grade child can do many things. He can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. He can do fractions, maybe, if he has got that in his fourth grade. Then he can read question answers. He can write essays. He can write paragraphs. He can do paraphrasing. He can do precis writing. These things he can do independently. Many things he cannot do, which means maybe he might not know the Pythagoras theorem. He might not know so many other things. Maths teachers over here, they know. He cannot do it all. So going from what the child can do independently to what the child cannot do at all is the zone of proximal development. If we give enough activities, enough potential, enough activities where the child can show his potential in the form of quizzes, puzzles. If a child has learning reading problem, then maybe when you're talking, maybe you can put subtitling or captions when you're talking. All these things can help. So it is important for us as teachers to find out where is the zone in which the child learns maximum. If too much is given, the child will fall out of that zone, out of the zone of proximal development. If less is given, he might get bored and again he will fall out of the zone. So we need to understand this theory. And this gentleman, Vygotsky, he died young. So his theory was taken up by other psychologists and later on used to modify curriculum for gifted children. Now we look at some forms. Now most of these things are very self-explanatory. But what do you think as teachers, if we can have a quick brainstorming about what do you think you can do to develop a child's with giftedness in terms of education? Can we have a quick discussion on this? Or anyone would like to share, or you want me to share? Yes, please unmute yourself if you wish to speak.
Give him self-belief, and irrespective of the level of talent, self-discipline is very important. Talent only will never take anyone places unless they are self-disciplined also. So that is also very important. Otherwise, it doesn't give you a free ride. Talent doesn't give you the right to disregard this.
Should we give an example of that? Sachin Tendulkar and Vinod Kamble came into cricket at the same time. There was a great difference in the way both their career paths went. Just to take from what you are saying, madam, this was Jamila madam, I think. So, Sachin Kamble, Vinod Kamble, he was not able to handle the success. He was not able to maintain his emotional or social balance in such a manner that he could go ahead. Some people say he was much more talented. We don't know. But how EQ plays a role. We all know what is EQ. Along with IQ, EQ also plays a big role where the child's success is dependent on. So whether he is able to take failure, whether he is able to handle success, he should not feel that the world revolves around me and I am the universe and everybody else are subordinates or people whom I can order around. So if the EQ is low, then there will be a problem. There are many examples in life where people have failed. There are very negative examples. Now, some very interesting things, if I can tell you, negative examples, normally I speak and now I think we have got extra time. So we can speak about certain people who, like Hitler, anybody whom you know could be gifted and who were not able to, do well in life. Even the criminals. Somebody like Harshad Mehta, have you heard of him?
Yes, ma'am.
Then this gentleman who ran away from India, the one who had the airlines, Kingfisher Airlines.
Vijay Mallya.
So many of them. Yes. Choksi, Mallya.
Too many of them. If these people don't get the correct, now these are the people we know because the media has spoken about them. But there are so many. Even people like the dons, the big dons like Dawood Ibrahim and all those people. How did they achieve that level? There has to be some amount of giftedness in them, some amount of ability to leadership qualities, the incredible leadership qualities, to be able to get things done without having a regular mainstream education. There are so many like that.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I just tell you something?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. They are gifted, but don't you think that they have some conduct disorder? Otherwise, they wouldn't have chosen this kind of a path.
Yes. To answer your questions, Anchita madam, conduct disorder can also go hand in hand with giftedness. It can also go hand in hand because, like I said, even autism for that matter, There are a small percentage of people who can be, if you've seen the movie Rainmaker, a certain percentage of people who can be with autistic-like symptoms or autistic-like features who can also be gifted. So it is very, and again,
Yes,
it's a
ma'am.
matter of the environment that they grew up in. It's a matter of the feeding which we have got from a very young age, isn't it? So it's all about brainwashing. It's all about where they have brought. So like I said at the beginning of the lecture, it's a lot to do with the nature versus nurture. The what the child is born with and what the environment makes him. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, I also agree with it. Thank you.
Okay. So when we come back to this enrichment, giving something more than what the other children, giving them more advanced tasks, giving them more complex tasks to work with, so that they don't feel bored, they don't finish before the others. And I hope it is recording. They don't finish before the others, and also some kind of hobbies if they can take up. Some maybe music and singing and all that. Yeah, it is recording. Yeah, so that can be taken up. Apart from this, there is compacting. Now, when we were young, I don't know, did you ever hear of double promotions of, the child?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it
Double
used to be
promotion,
fairly common then.
Yeah, it used to be fairly common at that time. There was also something called, compacting, where two classes are, like for example, a child who takes a double promotion moves from, say, grade 5th, that the child we were talking about, directly moves to grade 6th, and curriculum of 5th and 6th will be taught to him in grade 7th. And we assume that he will accelerate that curriculum and keep it self-paced. So self-pacing, here the curriculum is designed in such a manner that the child decides how much I'm going to learn and at what level I'm going to learn. An accelerated curriculum is what double promotions is all about. And I saw some mention of it in the NEP this time, where it is going to be identified. Obviously, giftedness by itself, if they are identifying, then these forms of education also. And in India, in 1986, we had the Navodaya Vidyalayas, CBSE school principals are here. You know, the Navodaya Vidyalaya schools were formed. And at that time, there was this mandate that every district will have one school catering to the gifted children. In Maharashtra, in Pune, we have one school called Gyan Prabodhini, which was founded in 1962, as early as that. But number of seats are limited. And again, it is only high school, and it's a residential school. So the number of people can actually avail of that is very limited. Though the concept was there right from 1986 to now, it was only on paper. Every district needs to have a school or a curriculum where gifted children can go to, or in our schools itself, if we can have like a pulling out class where they go to a separate class where they can nurture their hobbies, where two classes mathematics is taught to them at one time because they are very good and they're forging ahead. So self-pacing should be allowed. Acceleration of curriculum should be allowed. Part-time pulling, like for example, a child is not interested in, say, a language or any subject. He can go out of that lecture and attend another lecture, which would be more useful for him. So if you earlier, Matthew sir had taken a session for NEP, I had taken it for people here in Maharashtra. So there, that time we had spoken about this, where child who is interested in particular subject can attend only that lecture, and he need not attend lectures of what he's not interested in. So that would be part-time pulling out. And this is actually being written in the NEP. And this is something which in the Western countries, they're already following. Then there is part-time summer weekend school, where they can attend the school, maybe they can learn a different language, learn maybe a musical instrument, other dance forms. Then separate classes are separate schools, like a ballet school, like a book reading class, what we were discussing, the mentors. That kind of thing can definitely help the children. And there are systems, or there are teaching methodologies there called tag teachings, called talented and gifted teaching modules, or gifted and talented education. So slowly our country is taking this and accepting this and making this part of our schooling also. So every school would get the benefit of having this kind of a setup, where a child can leave the regular class and attend a class of what he or she is interested in. Now coming to,
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes. Yes, Mrs. Sanchita.
Can you please explain
Yes.
self-pacing?
Self-pacing is where the child would decide at what pace he or she learns. See, now there is a concept internationally which has not yet come to India, which is called IEP, which is Individualized Education Plan. We only do it for the special needs children, where the IEP decides the pace at which the child will learn. Individualized plan would have the strengths of the child, what the child can do independently, what the child needs help for, and what the child absolutely cannot do. So based on that, the child looking at the teacher will have to tell, the parents will have to tell what he or she can do. Based on that, the syllabus is planned for the child. Right? So that is self-pacing, but the child himself decides at what pace I want to learn. Is that clear?
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
asking me right away, because then once we move ahead, it might be difficult
Yes,
to
ma'am.
get back. Okay.
Yes,
So the implications for us as teachers, lastly, we need to understand why we need to allow these children to be different, because they have to be permitted to work more quickly and deeply on their scheduled work. They have to be different. We cannot, make Xerox copies of the children in our class and say, everybody look at his book, see how he's written, see her handwriting, see the way he's done his homework. This way, if we make comparisons in class, then the gifted child feels very traumatized, because he has a different way of doing his work. Right? So they need to be permitted to work more deeply on their scheduled work. They should be permitted to forge ahead with the teacher's assistance, and you set work at higher levels for these children. And one thing very, very unique about this is, we might say, okay, now these children, they don't get into many of the fields, because most of these competitive exams, entrance tests, they are all MCQ based. And the gifted child cannot, he's not good at MCQ, because you have only given three answers, three potential answers. The gifted child has a fourth answer, which is also correct, which he thinks can be the correct answer. So they are very good with open-ended, like essay types, such essay types, or big answers. They're very good in that, because then they can answer it in the way they want. But if you give MCQs, fill-ups, and that kind of thing, where only one answer is a correct answer, like how you have in Google Forms, becomes very difficult for them to score, because they cannot understand why you are asking this question in this manner, whereas the way they have perceived it is something totally different. So they need to be allowed to pursue their creative interests. We cannot curb their interests. So let that child be free. Let the child do what he or she likes doing. You have to engage a lot of peer coaching when you're saying pairing children with like abilities. So peer coaching, give them a group to mentor. They love to mentor younger children, and they themselves require one teacher who will mentor them. So, peer coaching, like where they can, if they are good in a certain thing, they can teach the others also what they are good at. So we need to pair children with like-minded abilities. They have to choose their own learning style. Now, learning style by itself, I'm sure you all know, is a very big module by itself. Some are visual, some are kinesthetic learners, some are auditory learners. So some have a complex combined way of learning. So depending on what they are good at, let them decide what is their learning style. Lastly, the 10 things which I want all teachers to remember about gifted children. The first two lines I already spoke about, the vice versa line. Not all gifted children might seem smart, they might not all be successful, and not all successful children or not all smart children are gifted. There is a great difference between the bright child and the gifted child. When you say 120 is normal IQ, the bright child falls in 115, which means he's in the upper limit of the normal IQ. He's not beyond the regular group. He's still in the regular group, but he's much beyond most of the others. So we need to understand that not all smart children will be gifted. Not all successful people have gifts, or they are extremely gifted. Just because a child is gifted does not mean the child will be doing well. You are so talented, you are so good. Why are you not able to understand this? Maybe he is not able to understand your math problem, but he is good in something else. Yes, he is smart, but he's still a child. So they still need to be treated like children. We still need to be empathetic with them. We still need to understand that their emotional growth is still as a child, and they need that love and support. They need empathy from us as teachers. Don't try to outthink and be smart with him and try to put him down, him or her. Be very specific. See, a child with giftedness can follow 4 or 5 instructions at one time. Go up, bring the remote control, fetch me a glass of water, bring your dirty clothes to wash. 4 or 5 instructions we tend to give because we are multitaskers. A child might say, how many things are you telling me to do at once? But for a gifted hypothetical thinking, abstract thinking is fast. He or she will process that set of instructions and do it fast. But you need to be very specific in your instructions, because if they don't follow it, then they themselves feel disappointed in themselves, because they have very high standards for themselves. You have to embrace the unexpected. You have to allow creativity in routine tasks. Don't let them do things in a mediocre manner. If they want to do it creatively, just because you think the tree should be green doesn't mean the tree should be green. He can draw it in red, yellow, blue, any colors that he wants. Just because a student won't do something that you ask him to do doesn't mean that he can't do it. Maybe he's not interested. Maybe he thinks it's too boring, or maybe he thinks it's too childish. Because most of the children at his age, he might find they're very babyish and they're very kiddish in the way they are relating to things. And most importantly, teachers, we know that parents are the ones who are observing. One problem here is most parents think their children are gifted. Most parents think their children, we know as teachers and principals that most parents think, "Arey, my child is excellent. He speaks, he's able to work the mobile so well, he's able to do." Every child feels that. But we have a list of things that we need to look at. As educators, we know, okay, maybe this child is not good in languages, but he is good in drawing, he is good in art and craft, or he is good in oratory skills. What is he good in? So we need to definitely listen to the parents, but also use our discretion when we are making decisions for the child. And you won't discover what a child can do unless and until you give him the opportunity. So we as teachers need to create that opportunity for the child to work well, to do well, and to bring out his inner potential. Lastly, I would like to leave you with this line, which has been written by my favorite psychologist, Jean Piaget, who wrote The Theory of Cognitive Development. The principal goal of education in schools should be creating men and women who are capable of doing different things, new things, in a unique manner, not simply repeating what other generations have done, not simply repeating what our forefathers did just because a college degree was important at that time. We as educators should understand that it is time to change with the times. And we are not, it's not a factory where we are producing same people again over and over again. We need to evolve with the changing times and create those kind of opportunities for the children. Lastly, I would like to say that each and every one of us in this meeting room is gifted. It is unique, and we are each gifted in a unique and very important way. All of us, every one of us have got some gift of the other. Nobody is born with zero potential. Nobody is born with zero IQ. That concept is not there. And it is our privilege and our adventure to discover our own special light. And also, once we discover our own special light, it is also important for us to discover the special light that all the students in our class come with. So that is it. Thank you very much, all of you. I am ready to take your questions. Thank you so very much. And Matthew, sir, you can take over.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. So we can take one or two questions since actually we are running out of time. I think we'll take one or two questions and wind it up. Yes, anybody has any questions, please go ahead.
Excuse me,
Yes.
can I ask
Yes,
a question?
Sure.
Ma'am, can we have any format through which we can understand whether the child is gifted or not in the class?
Yes, there is, like I said, I gave you all the characteristics, but if you actually want to test, you can either refer for a battery of tests to a psychologist, which would start first with an aptitude. See, I was talking a lot about IQ, but IQ by itself is not enough. Aptitude means, because we don't have time, let me just explain it to you. Aptitude would mean that the child's innate ability to do a particular thing. So a battery of tests where IQ, aptitude, personality tests, okay, all these tests a psychologist will do, and then based on that you can figure out, okay, this child seems to have something uniquely different. And now the IQ tests have changed. There are many tests in the market now where psychologists can actually identify. And like ADHD is also an associated condition of children with ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity, which could be the next session that we can take. But ADHD has a list of tests which out of 14 characteristics, 7 characteristics should be met. Similarly, gifted also have those characteristics which can be met. But unlike ADHD, which only speaks about attention, giftedness by itself covers a whole range of human endeavor, which means obviously no one test can be considered comprehensive. You need to have a battery of tests. I hope that answers your question, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. But ma'am, for the school teachers, if we can do some screening sort of thing to understand that the child is having some, gifted kind of traits. So for that reason, if we can have a screening sort of
You can,
format.
like, yes, you can have a string of activities where you can identify whether this child, like oratory skills, impromptu speeches, dance, music, drama, all these things, leadership, where leadership is needed, events in the school, where obviously we all have these events in school. So you kind of pinpoint, okay, this child has some kind of gift. So along with other teachers, you could take a decision, and you can download these characteristics from the internet, and you can take and you can find out of this how many categories the child is meeting. Have a meeting with the parent, and then refer him for to a psychologist. But for that, you need to have a multidisciplinary team. It should not be just you as a teacher. It should be all the teachers consistently across settings, at home, in the school, on the playground, in wherever classes he go. Everybody should feel that yes, this child has some gift. Then you move ahead with the formal assessments. Right?
Okay.
Last question.
Thank
Last,
you.
we'll take one more question. That's all. Last question, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody wants to ask? Yeah, one more question we can take.
Yes.
Okay, can I go with my question?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, Archana ma'am, for the wonderful session you have taken. As a career counselor, I just wanted to know what kind of careers, either vocational or professional, are the best suited for such gifted children. I'm also a mother of a special need child myself.
Okay.
Okay, my son is a hearing impaired child, but right now, because of only hearing disability, he's a cochlear implantee and he's studying in a triple IT engineering college.
Oh,
okay, but if you talk about a gifted child, what kind of career pathway I as a career counselor should suggest such children who are coming to me?
You cannot suggest any one career unless and until you have an aptitude done to check. See,
Yes.
career counseling goes hand in hand with aptitude testing. You do the aptitude testing,
All right.
find out what he's good at. Is he good with design? So then obviously he's already engineering. So what type of engineering he's doing? So based on that, depending on what is the aptitude of the child, is he good in music?
Right.
Is he good in mathematics? Is he good in languages? What is he good at? Unless and until you find that, you cannot point the child to the correct career. So for that, you find out what the child is good at. Like I said, unlike ADHD, giftedness is a wide gamut of characteristics, wide gamut of skills. That is why the whole multiple intelligences theory I showed, because it can be anywhere, the gift.
Right, ma'am. Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Got it.
Welcome.
Fine. Thank you, Matthew, sir. Thank you.
Call it a day because it's 7:30 right now. So thank you so much for sparing your time from your busy schedule.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to the participants. So good night, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was a good session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
बच्चों कुछ खा लिया हमने मीटिंग था हमारा ना खा लिया कुछ अभी शाम को चाय उड़ जाए अच्छा